Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a Prince Andrew update. Business Insider literally just dropped an article about Prince Andrew and his legal woes and what can possibly happen to him in this case. So, according to the headline, again, I haven't read the article yet, but according to the headline, it says that the experts in this article are going to explain what Prince Andrew's basic outline, what he's looking at in this case, and how he might be forced to cooperate. And I think this is going to be a pretty informative article because I'm certainly no lawyer and I can't explain the legalese to anybody really. But I think it's an important piece of information for us to go over. I think it's an important piece of information for us to add to our catalog here. And I think that it will be an informative article in that regard, considering I don't think many of you are lawyers out there, but if you are, hey, that's cool. Maybe you can add to what we read here, yeah? All right, so before we jump into that article, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. Let's see what this article says. Business Insider. Headline: Legal experts explain how Prince Andrew could be forced to cooperate in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Ever since his car crash interview last month, more like Hindenburg, there has been mounting pressure for Prince Andrew to speak to U.S. investigators about his friendship with deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The prince seems to be warming to the idea of sitting down with U.S. investigators to talk about his relationship with Epstein, which he admitted last month was ill-judged. Where do they get that he seems to be warming to the idea of sitting down with investigators? I haven't seen that information. Have any of you heard that information? Just from sources and from himself saying, oh yeah, I'll sit down with them, but that could easily be a smokescreen. Until he's actually sitting in front of these investigators, I don't believe that he's going to do it, especially under, his own will. In his BBC interview, he said if his lawyers signed off on talking with American authorities, he would be duty-bound to do so. And when he announced he was stepping back from public life last month, he said he would be willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations if required. So what's the holdup? Can anyone explain to me what the holdup is? How come this guy isn't hemmed up and given the business already? I don't want to hear about he's a prince or any of that jazz. This guy needs to answer some questions, and some hard questions. Some questions on the record, under oath, not just some news media questions. But just how such a talk would go down remains up in the air. Insider spoke to 3 legal experts with experience in federal and sex abuse cases who gave insight into the likelihood of an Andrew interview, the conditions that could be set, and the possibility that he could become a target of the investigation. Prosecutors and investigators will likely want to talk to Prince Andrew. Though Prince Andrew hasn't given too many details about what he witnessed during his friendship with Epstein, and he claims to have had no direct knowledge of illicit activities, investigators will still likely want to interview him, lawyer Dominique Penson told Insider. Penson, a partner at Barish, McGarry, Salzman & Penson, has represented sexual abuse victims in the past in cases involving the Catholic Church and Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sure they would be interested in talking to him because he was apparently close to Epstein on a number of occasions. And then, of course, everybody now knows the allegations made by Miss Roberts. Penson said, referring to Virginia Roberts, who said Epstein paid her to have sex with the prince when she was 17. The prince said he has no recollection of ever meeting Roberts. Penson added, if true, he had a close inside look into Epstein's sex trafficking operation. What do you mean, if true? There's a picture of him with her. All the legalese and how everybody's so quick to dance around on eggshells. Unless, of course, it has to do with your political narrative being forwarded. Then, of course, everybody is guilty without trial. Everybody's everything that the sources say. But around these parts, everybody likes to tiptoe. What are you so scared of? What are you so scared of, if true? It's true. Epstein definitely did that. Prince Andrew was involved, and so was Ghislaine Maxwell. That's my opinion. Try and change my mind. Since Epstein died in jail before facing trial, justice for the dozens of women who accused him of molesting, assaulting, or trafficking them has been in limbo. Prosecutors could turn their attention to Epstein's possible co-conspirators, which Roberts has alleged includes Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's one-time girlfriend and alleged madam. and, partner in crime when it comes to abusing these women. There's a good chance an interview could happen because of the public scrutiny against the prince. And that's all you, folks. That is all you. The pressure you're putting on these people, the interest you have in this case, the active role you're all taking to make sure that there's justice here. Well, this is all because of you. He's going to even have this interview if he does it. It's not because of any great police work. It's not because of any great federal agent work. It's because of the pressure we're applying right now in real time on a regular basis. We're not letting this son of a bitch wriggle out of this one, are we? Juliet Sorensen, a former federal prosecutor who now teaches public corruption and criminal law at Northwestern University's Pritzker School of Law, told Insider there's a good chance that Prince Andrew will speak to U.S. investigators so that he can repair his tarnished reputation. Nobody cares about his reputation. And once again, this is what it's all about, right? They're saying it right now in their own words, these law professors. They know the deal. I'm no law professor, but I wasn't born yesterday, and I wasn't born at night. I wasn't born last night. It's obvious what's going on. It's all about their reputation. It's all about rehabbing the reputation. It has nothing to do with the victims or having empathy for the victims or wanting to help in the case. All it has to do with is restoring his reputation. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. Your reputation is ruined. It's never coming back. Just time to deal with the facts that you're going to be labeled as a sick, depraved perv for the rest of your life, Handsy Andy. The media's reaction to Andrew's BBC interview about his relationship with Epstein was widely panned, with many criticizing the prince for failing to show regret about the friendship or sympathy for the victims. Shortly after the interview, he announced that he would be taking a step back from public duties. Yeah, take a step back right off the top of Buckingham Palace and right onto the grass field, because that's basically where you're at this point. You're a persona non grata. You don't even exist to the public except for in their scorn. Speaking to investigators could be a step toward changing the public perception of him and returning to royal work. What is this about? No one wants him to change the public. You know what will change his public perception? Coming out and spilling the beans on everybody. That's your only road back. That is your only road back to even having a hair of honor if you want to be an honorable man. But even then, you're still a piece of you-know-what for what you did, for what you were involved with, for the people you associated with, and for what you enabled. When asked whether it was likely that Andrew would agree to speak to U.S. officials or if he was trying to get brownie points by offering, Sorensen said it's probably both. That is to say, he probably received the advice that it's going to make him look better if he agreed to speak. It appears that the scrutiny of him and the pressure on him is increasing, Sorensen said. Oh, does it? It appears, huh? Yeah, it's increasing. It's coming down the pipe at 4,000 miles per hour at this point, and he is right in the way. There's a train coming down the tunnel, and there's nowhere for him to go. If he talks to investigators, he's cooked, folks. Are these lawyers trying to give him bad information through the media, saying, yeah, it's probably a good idea for your reputation? How'd that work out in the interview with Mateless? Do you think that hardened FBI interview people, investigators, aren't going to break this dude? Come on. See, that's what a good investigator would do. Then again, you never know. These could be handpicked FBI agents coming over here to white glove this guy like they do with all the other rich and famous people. He might not have a choice whether to cooperate or not, but whether or not he talks to American investigators could be out of Prince Andrew's control. Since both the U.S. and U.K. are members of the Hague Convention, international law could come into play, Penson said. If prosecutors were proactive, they could file a request through The Hague compelling Andrew to testify in the case. And that's definitely a route that I'm sure that they're looking at. If the courts in America and the courts in England aren't going to do the right thing, then they have to take it to The Hague and try and go that route. Any way to pressure this guy into talking. The same goes for Epstein's victims. If they want Andrew's testimony badly enough or named him as a defendant, he could be compelled to testify. Faced with the possibility that he could be forced to talk anyway, his recent offers to talk may have just been a move to get him some good PR, Penson said. Finally, somebody that understands what's going on. I 100% agree with that. This is all a PR move from all of these people. If I were his lawyer and I thought, gee, if they want it badly, they're telling me they're going to go through The Hague, and I thought they're going to get it, then because you also have to have the public relations mind, probably you better cooperate, Penson said. If an interview were to happen, it would likely take place in the UK. Volunteering to sit down for an interview would also give Prince Andrew more power in setting the terms of the talk, Penson said. 100%. If he agrees to it, then I'm sure he's, has a little bit of the upper ground, right? The higher defensive position. Whereas a subpoena brings him in and it looks a little bit more insidious. Sorensen said that if she were the prince's lawyer, she would demand that the talk happen in the UK. Prince Andrew is not going to travel to the U.S. and face the possibility of either exposure to U.S. journalists or some type of arrest warrant that can only be effectuated if he comes to U.S. soil, she said. Well, he doesn't have to worry about the journalists. The journalists here love him. They'll all probably want to take him to dinner and go out to another dinner with him and cheer him. And we want access to the royals, so we're going to bury this story about human trafficking. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein, who's that? This is a stupid story. However, she said being arrested in the U.S. is still highly unlikely for Andrew since he's the son of Queen Elizabeth II. What does that matter? Who cares? I don't care who he's the son of. I don't care if he's the son of God. If he's involved in this kind of nonsense, well, that's it. You're under suspicion. You need to be questioned. And if you're involved, you need to be arrested. Okay? The two-tier justice system is rearing its ugly head again. If you're Weinstein or if you're Andrew and you have enough dough, you can pay to make it all go away. No matter who you abuse, no matter how many lives you ruin, you can keep getting away with it if your pockets are deep enough. Sick, folks. It's absolutely positively sick. And the people who write these laws and the people who are supposed to enforce these laws should be embarrassed of themselves. The people at the highest levels, from Barr to all of his cronies, all of them should be embarrassed with themselves. Andrew's status as a member of the British royal family complicates matters. It shouldn't. I do not care. Again, listen to me. I do not care about him, his Habsburg jaw relatives, or any of the other dingbat inbreds that have run around in England talking about their monarchs, their kings, their this, their that, who cares? Doesn't matter if you're involved in crimes. I thought that was the mantra in the media. Nobody's above the law. The president's not above the law. But Prince Andrew is? Stop it. Stop it right this instant. Prince Andrew must be arrested or at the very least subpoenaed and talked to by authorities, not with white gloves, not with kid gloves, not going in saying, well, this is the Queen's son. No, just like any other perp, needs to be brought in and interrogated and put to the question. While the Queen is the only member of the royal family who has diplomatic immunity, called sovereign immunity, her son's royal pedigree certainly complicates matters. If U.S. officials obtained evidence that Prince Andrew committed a crime in the course of their investigation, they can demand his extradition to the U.S. to face trial. The extradition treaty between the U.S. and the U.K. works like this. If the U.S. government wants to prosecute a British national for a crime, that act must also be a crime in the U.K. Ultimately, it's up to a British judge whether to sign off on the extradition order, have the suspect arrested, and sent to the U.S. But Sorensen says it's unlikely that the American investigators would ever demand the prince's extradition because it could harm diplomatic relations between the two countries. Again, it doesn't matter about you or I, folks. It doesn't matter about Virginia Roberts. Nobody matters, right? It's only the greater good, diplomatic relationships between the two. Yeah, right. As if that's going to matter at all. What's England, who's getting ready to leave Brexit, not going to be, is going to scorn America at this point? I hate to say it, but England has never needed America more. Now that they're bouncing from the EU, and we know that with Boris Johnson's victory, that's coming soon, who is going to be their number one trade partner? Right? So I don't think that the English people are going to freak out. I don't think there'd be an outcry. If there was tangent evidence provided that proved that this man is involved, I think the English people would be at the palace with pitchforks and torches. All right? The English people don't play those games. I think that's totally unlikely because the U.S. has other fish to fry and has intimate relations with the United Kingdom that arresting a member of the royal family would jeopardize, Sorensen said. I highly disagree with that. The fact that Andrew is a prince also means that decisions about his involvement in the case will be decided at the highest levels of the Department of Justice, University of Chicago law professor Sharon Fairley said. Well, considering the bumbling fools who run the Justice Department right now and who were running it before this regime and even before that regime, well, I'm not looking for too much out of them. So hopefully they surprise us. But if we're counting on those clowns, boy, oh boy, I think we're going to be waiting for a long time. There's going to be a whole heck of a lot of scrutiny and hoops that are going to be jumped through to compel him to testify or charge him, if that is even possible under international law, Fairley, a former federal prosecutor, told Insider. She continued, certainly those decisions are going to be made by the highest levels at the Department of Justice because of the political implications. That's a pretty serious matter when you're bringing in someone of that stature. I imagine that's going to be really discussed all the way up to the top. Okay, whatever, as long as they do the right thing. So okay, let me just break it down like this. If that's the case and nothing happens, we know exactly to hold responsible, folks. We know exactly who is covering this up, folks. And then the question becomes, why would Barr be covering it up? What is Barr's involvement in this? Has he been gotten to? These are questions that need to be asked, right? If Andrew skates free, if Andrew doesn't answer the questions, if he's not put to the rack, then ultimately that's on Barr. Prosecutors would only offer immunity if they knew Andrew has valuable information. Oh, he has valuable information. He knows Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in this shit. He knows how close they are. He doesn't know. Okay. Prosecutors only give out immunity when they know that a witness has information that they won't be able to win their trial without, Fairley said. I think that's what prosecutors are probably trying to figure out right now. What information he could potentially have that would inform their case, she said. Even if they decide to offer immunity, Fairley said full immunity is rare. Yeah, okay. Unless, of course, you're involved in the first case with Epstein, then everybody gets immunity, even people that aren't even named in the case. You get immunity, you get immunity, you get immunity. Everybody's getting immunity. It's like an episode of Oprah, folks. Sometimes what you'll have is what's called a proffer discussion, and that's where anything that a witness says in the context of a proffer interview cannot be used against them in a criminal trial, Fairley said, adding that what they say must be truthful in order to count. Interestingly, this tactic is also called getting to be queen for a day. Fairley said it's important to note that the government can still use the information that they get in a proffer interview to develop leads in a case that could potentially uncover other evidence that might be used against the witness. Penson said prosecutors could also offer to keep Andrew's testimony under seal or protect him from being served with a lawsuit if he comes to the U.S. for the talk. The former is less likely, though, due to the public interest in the case, Penson said. Prince Andrew's woes are likely more about his image than legal concerns. Yeah, well, that's only if we allow it to be. That is only if we allow it to be the case. And to tell you what, folks, I don't really think that's going to happen. I know for a fact on 4 continents for sure, people have had enough of this nonsense. And it's not going to stop. People are going to keep pushing and probing and asking questions, and nobody's going to settle for their nonsense narrative this time. Prince Andrew's connection to the Epstein affair is Robert's allegation that Epstein paid her to sleep with the prince twice when she was a minor. No, that's more than that. He enabled Epstein's behavior, folks. He enabled that behavior. It is just absolutely, positively unbelievable to think that he did not enable that behavior. Though Roberts alleges that the sex acts with Andrew date back to 2001, there is no statute of limitations on the federal level when it comes to participation in the sex trafficking of a minor, so Andrews could still technically be charged if investigators find evidence to back up her claim. But the language of the law provides him an out. The law says it's a federal offense to knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, or maintain a minor, defined as someone under 18 years of age, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that the victim is a minor and would be caused and engaged in a commercial sex act. In other words, if Andrew can prove he didn't know Epstein was paying Roberts to sleep with him, if her allegations as such is true, then he wouldn't be guilty of sex trafficking. But there are still a lot of unknowns in the case. As his involvement with Epstein has been described currently, Penson thinks the main thing weighing on Andrew is how doing or not doing an interview would impact his public perception. Disagree completely. His public perception is ruined. It has nothing to do with his public perception at this point. He needs to clear his name or he is in jeopardy of going to prison. My guess is that his concerns are far more about public relations than they are about legal processes, Penson said. Both the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and representatives for Prince Andrew declined to comment for this story. Oh, of course they declined to comment, right? Why would they comment? They know what's going on. Now, the question becomes, is the FBI actively investigating Andrew? We don't have any evidence of that, but you have to think, with all the evidence we have, that we have talked about on this show even, that there's enough there. The emails, the et ceteras, there's just too much for them not to pursue this. All right, folks, if you would like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. If you would like to support the podcast, you can do that in the description box by following the GoFundMe link. I will be back later on tonight with our daily drop.